So we're going to give you a wee introduction here now and a wee bit of a chat about the project, and then I'm going to share my screen and walk you through how to use the Slack profile or program that we're using, just very, very briefly. And then we're going to get stuck in with a nice presentation on the Lillenhall Library. But I'll pass you over here now and get started. So Leslie or Niall, who's taking the lead? There's more.
Well, I'll introduce Niall.
Yes.
It should be the other way around, but hey ho.
Important.
I'm giving you your place. First of all, listen, welcome, and so glad you've all signed up. This is extremely new for me as well. The boys along the top row there have a wee bit more experience, but we're hoping that you'll get something really exciting out of it. We've got a creativity, bit of history, bit of personal stories. We've got some really good people lined up to work with, apart from myself. But I'm going to pass you over to Niall, who's the project manager of Making the Future, and he's going to give you a wee bit more background about the project and what it really is all about. Okay, over to you, Niall.
Thanks, Leslie. Morning, everybody, and welcome to Postcards from the Edge. This is, I think, since we've went into lockdown and since we've tried to find a new way to work, I think this is maybe our 5th or 6th program that we've tried to run online. Normally, our community engagement programs, as you can imagine, are done face-to-face. And normally, if this was normal circumstances, we'd be sitting in a room together, having a cup of, I see people eating toast and having cups of tea and coffee. We'd be doing that together. So if you want to grab a cup of tea and coffee and collectively imagine that we all are having it together, that's great. I've left mine downstairs, unfortunately. But our community engagement programs are very much about bringing people together in usually in creative ways to look at kind of interesting and diverse aspects, usually of our past and our culture. And we do that through the prism of heritage and collections and museums and libraries. So Making the Future, for those of you who don't know, Making the Future is a Piece 4 funded program, which is led by a consortium of organizations, including the Nerve Centre, where both myself, Jude, who's represented with the name Nerve Centre at the top here, and Paul Monk are based. And then the other 3 organizations are the Lillenhall Library, who are leading on this session today, and that's Leslie, and also Samantha McCombe, who we'll hear from later on as well, by Prony, and we've got some Prony representatives with us today, Lindsay and Laura, and also the National Museums Northern Ireland. And between each of those 4 organizations, we came together a few years ago to come up with this idea of a project, which then became Making the Future. And Making the Future it's a 4-year project which largely looks at using heritage collections and the past as a way to explore where we've come from, where we're going to, where we've come from, where we're at now, and where we're going to. So it's a project that's quite ambitious in its scope and its scale. There's a number of different strands to it, and everything from what we're looking at today, which is one of the strands is called Conflict to Peace, through other strands, which include Women in the Archives, Culture Lab, Troubles Art, Partition, and broadly trying to work with a really diverse range of people from right across Northern Ireland and the border counties. And we want to try and engage as many people as possible through these programs. And these programs include everything from exhibitions to one-off workshops and events to community engagement programs like this. And they're all really about trying to hear from as many people as possible about your experiences, about helping you to try and get some of those experiences down in creative ways to help you to expand your knowledge and your research base, and then also to leave behind a bit of a lasting legacy. So Making the Future, we want these programs to aid and to build onto something so that we're not just doing them for the sake of doing them, that we're working towards a common goal, we're working towards a common end, and we're genuinely trying to find out from people where we're going to next and what society and culture is starting to look like. So we do that through a range of kind of creative activities and outputs and across a wide team. So each of the 4 organizations, as mentioned before, between us, we all, I suppose, hold the keys to the past in terms of Lillenhall Library, Prony and National Museums NI, all have the collections and the stories and the archives and the items and the objects that refer to our past, that they hold the keys to our past. So through this project, we're giving people like you access to those keys and access to those collections and those stores and those archives. And again, that's going to be slightly different in the digital sphere, where we in the normal sphere, we'd be sort of handling those collections and seeing them in person. But we're taking a different tack with that at the moment. And then we use a process of creativity to explore those collections and those archives in the past, and to enable you then to produce creative outputs that respond and help you to help give you the space to respond to some of those collections. So over time, we've run programs that have ended up in the production of films, of virtual reality experiences, of audio interviews, of micro websites, of exhibitions, and we're always constantly looking at trying to develop new ways of exploring our archives, exploring the past. And the program that Leslie's put together for this session is, I think, really quite exciting. I should say, I'm sure Leslie will introduce herself afterwards. I think Leslie started a week before lockdown sort of kicked in, or maybe 2 weeks before lockdown kicked in. So came into this project quite new in that regard, and has really found her feet, and has put together a really fantastic program, which I hope you will, which I'm sure you will enjoy. I hope you will enjoy, but I'm sure you will enjoy over the course of the next few weeks. And as Leslie says, it includes some really interesting perspectives and opinions and presentations from different people. And we want you to get involved in the program as much as you can. In that, we'll be hosting some sessions through Zoom like this. We'll also be hosting discussions and sessions through a platform called Slack, which Jude will talk about a little bit later for anybody who hasn't used that before. And really, we would encourage you to get involved as much as you can, as often as you can, to start discussions, to start debates, to start arguments if you want. That's okay, because we all have different opinions, and that's okay. Although not too many, because nobody really wants that many arguments. But to open up discussion, open up debate, and to have a chance to have your say. That's very much what these programs are all about. So please do get involved as much as you can. That's broadly what Making the Future is. That's broadly where we come from. It's a big project. It's a complicated project for us sometimes. You can find out more information on makingthefuture.eu, and you can see what some of the work that we've been up to so far. I'm going to hand over to Leslie now, and she'll talk through this program. But just to say, it's lovely to see you all so early in the morning. And thank you for taking the time to get involved in this. We're trying to find a new way of working through these programs, and it's been really fantastic to see people's engagement and interaction and willingness to want to get involved too. So thank you for that. And over the course of the next few weeks, I hope you really enjoy it, and look forward to seeing end outputs and what comes out of this program. So thank you. Back to you, Leslie.
All right, thanks very much, Niall. Listen, as Niall said, literally hit the ground running with this one. I come from a visual arts and socially engaged background. Would have worked a lot sort of in peace lines and with contentious sort of gatekeepers, shall we say. So that's sort of my background, but a lot of community arts as well. So I really wanted to do something a bit visual with this, and the perfect starting point now representing the library was they have one of the possibly the most extensive postcard collection in Ireland, and Samantha McCombe from the library is going to be talking about that, but also talking about touching on our political posters collection that the library have as well. And I thought that was a good starting point from a history perspective, but also from a visual perspective. You know, sometimes it's just that one strap line that makes you think or starts a reaction. But then we're going to get you to do your own postcards. Obviously, being a visual artist, I can pretend I know something about art. We also have Jan Carson on board, who has, I think her latest book was The Fire Starters, which was pretty critically acclaimed. And she's going to be doing a creative writing session with you. So you have your visual of your postcard, and you also have your written story. And that can be something that is something personal to you, a moment in history. It could be something to do with a relative, etc. And we'll be discussing that through some of the sessions as well, about how you start your story and how you make your story visual as well. We're also going to encourage you to send some of the blank postcards out to some of your friends and family. If I'm going too quickly, by the way, just let me know, put your hand up. I have a tendency to speed up times. We're also encouraging you to send out some blank postcards to your friends or family and get them to do the same thing. Then all the stories and visuals will be brought together for an online exhibition. But I have also secured, hopefully, the library around September time, if we're back to normal. We'll actually have a real life exhibition. We'll be able to go out and drink wine and, you know, maybe even socially be like close to people, which would be, you know, something new as well. Also have Bill Rolston on board, and Bill teaches down at the University of Ulster, but he throughout the 90s, 80s, 90s and 2000s, I think Laura, one of my colleagues, will probably know a bit more about this, but Bill recorded all the murals across the province and how they changed and how the political messages changed on them. I mean, I know and it's probably one of the first times anybody has ever seen art. You know, we grew up with it, you know, and we've seen how they've changed. So I thought that would be interesting as well, of the art and slogans that surround us on a daily basis, sort of form part of our lives as well. So we've got what I like to think is a nice rounded sort of program. Before we even go anywhere, I don't want to hear anybody at all say, I can't draw. I'm just warning you now, because we will be able to be creative in other ways. But I'm going to pass you on to Jude now, and he's going to talk briefly about Slack, and then we'll get to Samantha and her presentation about the postcards and posters. Does that sound okay? Yeah? Okay.
Great. All right, so I'm going to take you through the process of getting logged into Slack for the first time. I've seen some of you have already logged on. That's great. Have any of you used Slack before? Give us a wee hands up or a wee thumbs up if you've used the Slack program before. Brilliant. Some people have used it. That's great. So you might know all this stuff I'm about to cover, but it's good to go over it. The more you use it, the easier it'll be. If anybody finds this daunting, don't worry. It's really not that bad. We're using it in a nice wee simple way, just as a place to discuss and to share ideas and to chat to each other. If you do have any problems, don't be scared to ask any questions. So I'm going to share my screen with you. 2 wee seconds. Okay. Right. So you'll all have got an email that looks something like this. It'll be, you'll just click on the join now. Now, because I've already followed this link, it's not going to give me the sign in here, but this would bring you to a window where you would register and make an account with your email address, and you'd make a password. So you would then sign in, and it will take you into Slack. So to take you into this is what we call our main workspace. Now, we are in our thread at the minute as team chat. So if I go to the left-hand side here, these different channels, we're going to click on Postcards from the Edge. So that's our channel that we're going to be using. Now, your Slack will look maybe a bit different. You won't have as many channels there. That's just from all the different programs that are on at the minute. So you'll click on that, and it'll bring us to our main chat thread. So we can scroll up and down through here. This is where we'll be able to post messages, share your work, share your ideas. It's basically just like a big group chat. So if any of you have a WhatsApp group chat or anything, something similar to that. So the channels are found in the left-hand side of the screen. You click on it once and it'll open it up for you. So now that you're here, this at the minute, there's not a lot on it because we haven't started yet. So it's nice and easy to scroll up and down through. But as we continue through the program and we start to chat and communicate with each other, this thread will get very busy and very full. So I'm just going to show you some nice wee ways to use it. So along the bottom here, nice and simple, you'll see your message box. So you can type a message in here and press enter in your keyboard to send it. And now that's come down the very bottom of the thread. Now, if I wanted to reply, so there's Paul Monk has writ, looking forward to this. If I wanted to reply to that message, instead of going down to the bottom and writing a message in here, I'd want to put it under Paul's message. So to do this, I hover my mouse over Paul's name or over Paul's message, brings up this wee extra window here. So you can do a few wee things here. You can add a reaction if you wanted to give them a wee emoji. Maybe you're all into your emojis. You can start a thread. So start a thread is basically reply. It's weird it says start a thread, but that's basically just the reply button. So when you click on that, it's going to open up a window to your right hand side. So notice the difference there. Posting down at the bottom is going to post your message directly to the board, the message board, but starting a thread is going to post it as a reply to Paul. Everybody can still see it, but it'll just be nicely neat and contained under Paul's post. So same here, Paul. Enter, send, and see now when we're on this main feed here now, you can see it says there's one reply under Paul's message there. It just keeps things tidy. So makes it that wee bit easier to communicate and get your point across to people. So if I was, see Melanie's here looking forward to a new experience today. If I write down here, same here, Melanie, and hit it there. See, it's kind of be lost in translation. Melanie's maybe not going to see that I've been commenting on it. So you'll want to reply. You want to start a thread. Apologies as well if I'm going too fast. I want to keep this brief so you can get into the fun stuff. I'll be on board to ask any questions at any time. But I'm like Leslie, I'm aware I'm going to speed up as I go along. So that's how you post your messages. That's how you post a reply. As well as that, if you wanted to upload an attachment, maybe you would have a picture that you wanted to share of your work. Click on the little paper clip on the right-hand side, bottom right of the message board. Click on that, and it'll give you the option to attach file. And you would select, 9 times out of 10, you would select your computer or wherever the file's at. And you can select an image and click upload. Depending on your internet connection, it might take a wee while to upload, so a wee bit of patience there. So that's how we're basically going to communicate. I'm going to bring another couple of wee things to your attention that will make things easier for you. So at the very top here, we've got a document, guidelines for use. This is just a wee document for you to read through. It's going to explain how we, want Slack to be used and how to just keep your wits about you and use it safely. And beneath that, there is a link to a wee video tutorial, basically explaining what I'm explaining now. So if after this session or during the week, you're a bit confused and you've forgotten how to use some of the functionality, just log on, go to this wee video and watch through it. Some of the stuff will be answered in there. But you'll notice that those two posts, the guidelines for use and the tutorial, are both a different color. They're slightly different color there. So that's because they've been pinned. And pinned messages is basically it's a function that we can use to flag up the important messages. So the likes of this guidelines document and this tutorial video is something we want to make easier for you to find, to bring it up to your attention. So if we're putting tasks up onto Slack, they'll be pinned as well. So it means they'll be easier for you to find, because this channel will get a bit hectic when everybody's posting and chatting. So as the weeks go on, it'll get more full and more full. So if you want to find your pinned messages, now it's easy to find them now because there's not many posts on this thread. But if you wanted to find them, the quickest way to do that would be up at the top, just beneath where it says the name of our channel. If you click there, it says view pinned items. It's a wee image of a drawn pin. So if you click on that, now it's brought up this window on the right hand side of the screen, and that's just going to have only pinned posts. So now there's no other posts, just the 2 pinned posts. So as we go and put other things up, there might be 10 or 15 pinned posts by the end of the project, but it means you can scroll through them without getting distracted or lost in all the other comments. So that's a nice wee function too. So I've covered, logging in. Just to refresh, the channels are on the left-hand side of the screen. You click on ours, postcards from the edge. You can comment on the main board here and do uploads. You can start threads and replies by hovering over. So that's the main functionality of it. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. ask me questions anytime you want, and you can also resort back to watching this video as well. There's a wee bit at the end of the video about using Slack on your mobile device. If you've got an iPad or a phone that you would want to download the app for, it is free. It's got some good points and bad points, so there's no right or wrong. You can use the desktop version, you can use the app, you can use both. It's entirely up to yourselves, whatever sort of suits you best. But as well as that, just in the wee email that was sent out with invitations and stuff, just to bring to your attention as well that there was a wee evaluation, not evaluation form, but a baseline sort of form that we would like you to fill in, a wee online document. Our funders just require that all participants fill one in at the start and the end of the project. So if you haven't done that already, that would be great if you could get that through as well. If there are any problems with it, just let us know. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I've covered the basics of Slack. Again, if this has scared you or put you off, or maybe you go, what is this crazy technology? Don't worry about it. We're all in the same boat. I still am doing things wrong in Slack and putting things in the wrong place. But it's a learning curve, and it's a good wee skill to have. And it's been working really, really well for us. It's a place to kind of share ideas and chat and to sort of to work on our creativity. So hopefully you all made some sense of that, and it wasn't complete gobbledygook. But no worries if not. And I tried to go slow. I felt myself speeding up every now and then, but hopefully you're putting with me. Brilliant. I'm looking forward to getting working with you all. I'm going to pass you over to do more fun, interesting stuff now. Happy enough?
Jude, thanks very much.
No problem at all.
Okay, folks, we've had all the technical parts and stuff. Do you want to just introduce yourselves and say your name and where you come from? And then we'll pass on to Samantha, who's going to give us her talk. Does that suit everybody?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So the way it'll work is I've got the wee participant list here on my screen. I'll go down and unmute you individually. And I'll just start at the top here. So where's your first one? A Cars is the name. I'm not sure. Are you there? I've got unmuted. A Cars. There you go.
Hiya. Can you hear me, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you, Shirley. That's brilliant.
All right. Hi, I'm Anya Carson, and I found out about this just by Twitter, so I thought, yeah, I'll join it. So.
Brilliant. That's great, Anya. Lovely to meet you.
You too.
Next one, Anya McGurk. You there, Anya?
I am. Hello. I am based. I'm in Dungannon at the moment. I found out about it through Brona, who's also on here, and I've just been trying to get back in. Well, not trying to get back into, but I just have enjoyed the process of writing a bit more during this time. Something I hadn't really been doing for a long time. So thought it would be maybe therapeutic. So.
Brilliant. That's great. That's great. It's good to make the most of the time. Yeah. Alexandra. You unmuted now, Alexandra.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Alex, living in Lurgan. Found out about it through another project that you're running.
Brilliant, Alex. That's great. Okay. Anne M.
Hi there, Anne from South Belfast, and I'm taking part in another project as well, and that's how I found out about it.
Brilliant, that's great, Anne. Brona.
Hi everybody, Tasney from just outside Newry, and I found out it because I'm a little bit obsessed with the feature, and I see a few other faces from different projects. I'm really looking forward to trying to be artistic. Not my thing, but anyway.
You'll be grand.
Keelan.
Hiya. I'm here in the Ring of Gullion, and I'm also taking part with Brona and Laura and a few others here in the Making the Future project as well. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It's right up my street, I think.
Brilliant. Great, Keelan. That's great. Colette. Aren't you unmuted now, Colette? You there?
Thanks, Jude. Yeah. Hi, I'm Colette, and I'm based in Brona. I'm based in Belfast, And I was involved in a project in Crony with Brona and Laura and Lindsay there recently. So I just thought I'd give another one a go. I haven't got a creative bone in my body. It's so far removed from my day-to-day activity that I'm really looking forward to it and seeing what I produce from the project. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody.
Not true at all, Colette. Everybody's got some form of creativity in them. We'll tap into it.
Oh, good.
We'll tap into it. Great, Colette. Thank you. Francis.
Hiya, I'm Francis McCombe and I'm based in Cork. And I was in a Women in the Archives project a wee while ago. Keep an eye on making the future.
Brilliant, Francis. That's great. Thank you. Ginge. You unmuted now. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Hopefully.
I'm trying to get my camera to work. I'm sorry about that.
It's no problem. If you're on the desktop, there's a wee button in the bottom left of the screen that should have like a wee video camera, but it's no worries if not.
It won't work for me today.
No, that's no problem at all.
I'm originally from Oma. Been living in Belfast a long time now. That's it, really.
Brilliant. That's great.
I have a GCSE in art.
Yeah, brilliant. You're going to tap back into that. That's great.
Yeah, but don't go thinking I'm a fantastic artistic person.
You're better than me. I don't have a GCSE in art, I can tell you that much.
I know, I got through photography. I left school thinking I'd no talent in art.
That's good. We'll tap into the talent. So seems like a talented group so far. So you're in good hands. Thank you very much. Jenny. Did I unmute you? Jenny, that's you unmuted now.
All right. Okay. It's still, yeah. Am I just sort of? Can you see me, or am I?
It's just your name in the box. I can't see you, but I can hear you perfectly, Jenny.
Can I put stop video, or is that what you do or don't?
Well, if it's saying stop video, that would imply that your video is working, so there must be a problem on that end. If you click on stop video, it'll.
Right.
Maybe.
Is that it? No, it says would like to access.
Still a blank. Oh, there you are, Jenny. We can see you now. Right. Hello, Jenny.
Okay. The difficulties in trying to move from one browser to another eventually got through.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat at the minute of two browsers and I keep getting very confused by myself.
It's about as much as I can handle. So anyway, I live down near Belcoo in Fermanagh. So lovely. I found out about it through one of the emails that Laura sends around.
Brilliant. That's great, Jenny. Great. So I've lost my place in this list of names. There's Jim. Unmute you now there, Jim.
Hi, Jim. I'm from Coleraine. Well, I live in Coleraine. I'm from Belfast, but I heard about it through the Lindenhall Library.
Brilliant. That's great, Jim. Where am I at? Who have I missed? There. Joe Denny. That's you unmuted now. Oh, maybe it's not you unmuted yet.
No, yeah. I had my own microphone muted anyway.
Ah, right, there you go.
That's yeah, my name's Joanna, and I see a whole lot of familiar faces, well, a couple of familiar faces here because I've just been on one of your projects and living in Ballyclare. Got an email about it, thought it would be interesting to do, so that's me.
Brilliant, that's great. Now I've got Joanna. I'm going to unmute you there, Joanna. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, sorry, my internet's coming and going. It's Virgin Media, but I'm in Belfast and I've got to see if the making feature nothing now, so I'm a bit.
That's great, Joanna. Cheers. Thank you. Well, there's somebody trying to join in. I'll admit that. Okay, Joanna. All right, I think Who have I missed? Melanie, did I get a Melanie? Maybe it.
Hello, I'm Melanie. I'm from Doak, Ballyclare, near the airport where there are no planes flying. I love sending postcards wherever I'm at, and I love getting postcards. So I just saw this on the Facebook page of Lennon Hall Library, so that's why I'm here.
Brilliant, that's great, Melanie. Thank you. Right, yeah. Teresa, that's you unmuted now. Teresa, if you want to say hello.
You caught me just trying to figure out how to get Zoom up on my laptop. My name's Teresa and I'm from Monaghan. I think it was an email I got, and I can't remember when I signed up, but I am, like another lady mentioned that lives near the airport, I've forgotten your first name. I like sending postcards when I go on holiday anywhere, or go away anywhere, even for the day sometimes. And I actually work in doing like local history research and postcards. Like, I really wonder what we're going to leave behind us for people in the future, because we just don't do written things anymore.
Yeah.
But that's why. The technology is a bit daunting, but getting there.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Learning new skills every day. Be grand. Right. I think I've got through everybody. There's Pollyanna. Pollyanna, you've come in there late. Would you mind? I'm going to unmute you, Pollyanna. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
I'm Judge.
Oh, you're back. All right, you're Ginge. We've got another Ginge here too.
Wait a second.
No problem. Take your time.
Oh dear, echoing.
You hear your echo. Maybe if you turn your speaker down, or maybe you're on the headphones. If you turn that down, it might help it.
Okay.
Do you have two devices running?
Yes.
You need to turn one of them off. That's where we're getting a bit of feedback from.
Right. So we don't have two Ginges. You're the other one. That's grand.
Pollyanna's the same person, Jade.
Yes, no bother. That's grand. Right. So
all okay now?
Yes,
that's it. Okay now. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So let me see 2 wee seconds. Bear with me. Brilliant. So I didn't stop at Samantha there, because she's going to give us a wee talk about the Lennon Hall Library, so she can introduce herself then. We have enough then, Leslie. Anything else you want to do before we move into a wee talk?
No, I'm just delighted that you have all joined up. You have a really good range of talents and reasons why you were interested. So hopefully you will all get something out of it. And as I say, I'm as excited as all of you as well, because this is sort of like a new type of engagement for me, and also learning about the collections and just being new to the library. I mean, I'm going to learn as much in this talk by Samantha today as any of you guys, so I was probably being a wee bit selfish as I was learning as well. So without further ado, Samantha McCombe from the Lennon Hall Library is going to give us a presentation. So Samantha, over to you.
Oh, we need to unmute you, Samantha. That's our fault. Bear with me 2 wee seconds, Samantha. Unmute. That should be there now, Samantha.
Thanks.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Jade. Hi, everyone. I hope you can all hear me okay. I'm just going to share my screen, if you can bear with me, so I can get the slides up. Let's see. There we go. Everyone see that okay? Yeah. Leslie, could you give me a thumbs up? Yeah.
Yes, all good.
So, brilliant. Thank you so much. So here we go. So I am Samantha McCombe. I am the librarian of the Lennon Hall Library in Belfast. I am delighted to welcome you to this innovative project. Thanks to Niall Leslie and Jude for the introduction. Sincere apologies, but Zoom will just not make friends with my laptop and does not detect the camera. So hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully you can see the slides. This is what I looked like before lockdown. And this is what I look like now after 2 months of quarantine and remote working. So for discussion today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Lennon Hall, give a high-level overview of the library's collections, including our digitised collections, with an emphasis on the political collection, before looking at the history of postcards and the Lennon Hall's comprehensive collection of postcards, which are accessible via the Postcards Ireland website. So to begin, just a brief word about the Lennon Hall. The Belfast Library and Society for Promoting Knowledge, the official name of the institution, more commonly known as the Lennon Hall Library, developed from the Belfast Reading Society, which was founded on the 13th of May, 1788. It is our birthday tomorrow, and there is lots of online activity happening, so please do have a look at the library's website and social media channels. The Lennon Hall is the oldest library in Belfast, and it is the last remaining subscription library in Ireland. The poet Michael Longley described it as the soul of Belfast, and I feel it is the closest thing Northern Ireland has to a national library. It is renowned for its Irish and local studies collection, ranging from comprehensive holdings of early Belfast and provincial printed books to the Northern Ireland political collection, which is the definitive archive of the recent Troubles. The library also boasts the largest collection of material relating to the poet Robert Burns outside of Scotland, and the Theatre and Performing Arts Archive, really unique collections which reflect our very rich cultural heritage. The library team answer around 5,000 collection-based queries per year, with student, academic and citizen researchers visiting from Europe, Australia, Canada and the United States. And we also have a high profile as a centre of cultural and creative life, offering a varied programme of events in ordinary times, ranging from monthly exhibitions to readings, lectures, book groups, language classes and genealogy workshops. And we have tried to replicate as much of our service online. We are a 4-star visitor attraction, and ordinarily we welcome visitors on daily tours of the buildings and exhibits. We've tried to put as much of those onto our website and social media channels. It is a really vibrant and exciting space. It is literally crammed full of knowledge, and it is alive with history. And the Lennon Hall's history and collections is intrinsically linked to the story of Belfast, and the library has a pivotal role to play in understanding all of Northern Ireland's past. So the Society was a local expression of a widespread British, European and North American movement for self-improvement. Such reading societies sprang up in many cities, towns and villages, and were particularly influenced in Ireland in the latter part of the 18th century by the liberal and egalitarian principles of the American and French revolutions. They were also influenced by the spread of literacy and the high cost of books, with the consequent necessity for individuals to band together to be able to afford works of importance. From its beginning, the Belfast Library and Society for Promoting Knowledge was an institution whose central aim was to run a subscription library for the benefit of its members. In common with other institutions of its kind, the library was, and to a certain extent still is, financed, managed and administered by its members. And it appears from the minute books there were some 15 founding members, and signatory to the original rules of the society included Roger Mulholland, a builder and architect who was the Society's first president, and Robert Carey, who was the first librarian. The Society moved around Belfast, settling in the White Linen Hall in 1802, and there it remained until 1888, when vacant possession of the hall was required. The new premises secured were a block of buildings at the corner of Donegal Square North and Fountain Street, a former linen warehouse, and where the library is still housed to this day. The White Linen Hall is now the site of Belfast City Hall, and if you've been in the Linen Hall Library, you'll know there are excellent views of it from the windows of the library. Compiled by the first librarians and leading members of the Society, early catalogues give a window into the reading habits of the late 18th century, solid, self-improving and thought-provoking texts, and still the central tenets of the collections today. And while Robert Carey was the first librarian, Thomas Russell is arguably the most famous. He was born in County Cork in 1767, originally intended for a career in the church. He gave up his religious calling to enter the army, serving in India. In 1791, Russell's regiment was stationed in Belfast, where he met and was influenced by such men as Samuel Neilson and Henry Joy McCracken. He was forced to sell his commission, and he became increasingly involved in the revolutionary politics of his friends and was a founder member of the Society of United Irishmen. He was elected librarian at the Linen Hall in 1794. His political activities came under increasing government surveillance, and in September 1796 he was arrested in the library rooms. Russell was held in prison first in Dublin, then in Fort George in Scotland until 1802. Upon his release, he became involved in Robert Emmet's rebellion and was tried and executed for treason at Downpatrick on the 10th of October 1803. And at this point, I always say, let's hope the same fate doesn't await me. I have included a picture of the Reverend Dr. William Bruce, the third president, who, according to some staff, still roams the library. So you will recognise him if you ever see him. So I am the 22nd librarian of the Linen Hall and the first woman to hold the post. And while the role of librarian has evolved since the time of Thomas Russell, at its essence is the custodianship of the collections, and I am tasked with making them as accessible as possible. 18th century ethos with 21st century delivery. And a project like this is a fantastic way in which we can make our collections accessible. So turning to the collections themselves, from 140 books in 1793 to literally hundreds of thousands of books today. As a membership library, we have an extensive general lending collection for the benefit of our members, of which we have about 2,500. Crime fiction is particularly popular, with the Scottish author Ian Rankin being the most borrowed author in the last couple of years. But our strengths lie in our Irish and local studies collections, with fantastic resources to support genealogy and the study of family histories. I think one of the participants mentioned being a family history researcher, so I'm sure they're very familiar with the library's collections, and strong Irish language and Ulster Scots collections. The library's most valuable book is a first edition of Ulysses, while the oldest book in the collections is De Anima, which is a medical and philosophical treatise from 1490, which concerns health and well-being. Areas of the library's specialisms have benefited greatly from digitisation, such as our theatre and performing arts archive. If it's an area that you're interested in, I would really strongly recommend that you spend some time exploring this great resource. The digital surrogate copies of unique programmes, playbills and handbills have been created from our archive of local theatres and theatre companies, including the Lyric and the Grand Opera House. Digitisation is also one of the ways special collections can stretch the physical boundaries of the library and engage with new audiences. Thanks to funding from the Department for Communities, the library was able to enhance its digital content by digitising the archives of a number of writers who were born or grew up in Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland Literary Archive begins in the late 19th century with the work of Sir Samuel Ferguson and includes letters, manuscripts and typescripts of, among others, Louis MacNeice, Robert Graham, W.R. Rogers, Sam Hannibal and Joan Lingard. And on a visit to the library, it was particularly pleasing to be able to show President Higgins both the original manuscript of Sir Samuel Ferguson's Connery alongside the digitised copy. And I think you'll agree he looks pretty pleased with the results. So in 2016, we gained museum accreditation for 3 of the library's collections. So we are a library, an archive and a museum. Those collections were our Belfast and provincial printed books. As a library, it wouldn't do if I didn't show you a picture of some Fusty books. So there they are. And the Gibson collection of Scottish poet Robert Burns, which coincidentally contains a number of postcards connected to Burns. There's a nice correlation there with this project. And the Northern Ireland political collection. So in 1968, the then librarian Jimmy Viddy was handed a civil rights leaflet in a city centre bar. He kept it and brought it back to the library. Since then, we've sought to get all material relating to the Troubles, and today the collection contains over 350,000 items, and documents the period from the emergence of the civil rights movement through the peace process to our post-conflict society. It is a living collection which is added to by acquisition and donation. To the best of our knowledge, it is the only collection to have been collected contemporaneously during a complete period of civil unrest. We believe no other institution has collected such a comprehensive range of materials relating to modern political conflict. It documents the activities of all parties to the conflict, from paramilitaries to government, and we believe a large number of items in the collection are only held in the NIPC, making it a really important political and social archive nationally and internationally. As well as the traditional means of acquisition, because of the type of material being collected, the library had to be imaginative in its collecting. Contemporary accounts report that during the height of the Troubles, staff literally climbed over barricades to retrieve items, and up until relatively recently, there were outings with lagaters and secateurs the day after elections to retrieve posters from lampposts. The team at the Linen Hall now try and photograph election posters, which is much less hazardous to health. So in addition to books and pamphlets, the collection also holds many significant archives which have been donated to the library. There are a few examples here on the slide. And the ephemera is a particular strength of the collection. Ephemera simply meaning items which are disposable and are ordinarily thrown away. Some examples being key rings, mugs, matches, badges, and items of clothing such as t-shirts, and the image at the bottom are babies' bibs, one of which says "Born to Walk the Carvackie Road." So I know a later session of this project is going to look at political art, and there are several thousand posters in the library's political collection. The first time the Linen Hall's posters were displayed was in a city centre art gallery in the 1980s. Something for you to think about is whether these posters are art or propaganda or both. And I'm sure that will be a theme which will be explored during later sessions. I feel the postcards in our collection give real insight into the period. They are the physical remnants of the times in which they were collected, and they really do serve as historical documents that help us to better understand those times. They convey the messages of the moment. They are stirring emotions, encouraging reflection, or in many cases, they are promoting action. They are a call to arms. And I'm just going to give a few examples of the very diverse collection of posters that we have. This poster was displayed in the window of a house in Andersonstown during Christmas 1971 as part of continuing protests against internment without trial, which had been introduced in August. Coincidentally, I was born in August, the 5th of August 1971, the civil rights poster, Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association poster, which was simultaneously in circulation, also used a candle and barbed wire, but this was derived from the Amnesty International logo. I'm sure it will look familiar to many, and was inspired by the proverb, "Better to light a candle than curse the darkness." In the 1970s, the Royal Ulster Constabulary produced these wanted posters in an attempt to catch the 3 most wanted men in Ireland at the time, Donald McClinchy, Ian Milne and Francis Hughes. They were almost reminiscent of the Wild West and the wanted dead or alive posters. The second poster is particularly interesting, as again, 7 years later, the RUC wanted to catch Dominic McClinchy. However, in this poster, they used a photo fit rather than an actual photograph. I'm sure some of you will remember the confidential telephone introduced in August 1972. In the first 6 months of 1973, the RUC claimed that just under 3,000 calls were received. By 1974, the Northern Ireland office was spending more than half of its advertising budget on this confidential telephone campaign. This poster and similar newspaper advertisements was a feature of the government's response to the rising violence of the 1970s, and the advertisements continued right up until the 1990s. A couple of interesting examples of harking back to World War posters. An IRA warning to informers, loose talk costs lives, was a Second World War warning about German spies. It was repurposed. Whatever you say nothing. was in response to mass Republican arrest on the evidence of Christopher Black in November and December of 1981. Black was one of the so-called supergrasses, whose information is believed to have led to over 200 arrests in 2 years. And as many as 200,000 people attended the Unionist rally at Belfast City Hall opposing the Anglo-Irish Agreement of November 1985. Both the event and this particular poster, which was designed by Cedric Wilson, consciously recalled the assembly in 1912, when around 250,000 gathered to sign the Ulster Covenant opposing Home Rule. The view of the crowd recalls souvenir postcards, which were issued in some 70 years earlier to that. And a number of the Linen Hall's political postcards contained in the Postcards Ireland site are from and about the Home Rule period. These posters are an example of punning and graffiti techniques used in a government post-ceasefire good news campaign. Other posters of similar ilk covered locations throughout Northern Ireland. The subsidiary line, if you can read it, is "Wouldn't it be great if it was like this all the time?" It's from Van Morrison's song Days Like This, which was also used in an aligned television advertising campaign. So just different examples of different ways in which posters display different art techniques. I'm sure it's something that Leslie will talk about when it comes to her session. So anyone easily offended, look away now, but this is the Pope at Drumcree poster, which depicts the then Pope John Paul II wearing a Glasgow Rangers football cap, an orange sash with Vatican LOL, LOL in this instance standing for Loyal Orange Lodge. The poster is an example of the many ways and the many posters that we have in the collection in which humour and very dark humour was used to depict the most difficult of times. Obviously the ongoing Drumcree and the annual march. This poster from May 2017 is by the artist Robert Bach, and it was presented to Martin McGuinness's son. And Foblag reported that it had sadly been anticipated as a retirement present rather than a memorial. And there were only 500 of these produced, and they're all signed and stamped by the artist. So again, an example of a political poster and art crossover. And as previously mentioned, the library now collects photographs of election posters. This from the Alliance Party in 2017. I think it's a bit of a shame election posters have got quite mundane, quite run-of-the-mill recently. They are largely just a photograph of the candidate, the name of the party, and associated colours with those parties. Some of the election posters from previous years were much more innovative, imaginative, but that's an example of a recent one. As previously mentioned, the library now collects photographs, as I said, of election posters. So we've always been seen as a neutral, shared space. The independence of the library is very beneficial in this sense. It has helped to engender trust. We are very proud of our reputation as a welcoming and inclusive space. In relation to the political collection, there is no bias, there is no judgment. There is all shades of opinion represented. An example being when we're back in the library, you'll be able to see the very careful and balanced selection of posters on display in the library's vertical gallery. We collect and we let the collection and objects speak for themselves, and there is no censorship. We jokingly refer to there being something to offend everyone in the political collection. It is very challenging to document the recent past, but the collection has a very important role to play in understanding all of that past. And obviously in a society where there is perceived exclusion, I feel the Linen Hall's inclusiveness is really essential. It is particularly important. And while the physical building is closed, it is especially important that the political collection is still accessible via our Divided Society website, which includes a significant section of the Northern Ireland political collection concentrating on posters and periodicals from 1990 to 1998. This was a historically significant period in our shared recent history and included events such as the Downing Street Agreement, 2 ceasefires, all-party talks, and negotiations which led to the Good Friday Agreement and the subsequent referendum. Just a few examples here of the some 800 posters that are available on that site, and around 500 journals. Lots of communities letters as well. It's really interesting to see what the outputs of your community would have been at the time. These are all freely available from the Divided Society website after a one-time registration. And to help you navigate around, it's a really user-friendly resource. The website is curated and focuses on 24 themes, such as ceasefires, decommissioning, and elections. And within each theme, there are relevant categories. For example, elections includes categories for each election fought during the 1990 to 1998 period. The project also included an intergenerational reminiscence project. Intergenerational work with young and older members of community groups across Northern Ireland took place. During these sessions, participants talked about their personal experiences, lasting legacies, hopes for the future, personal losses and life changes. And these memories were and experiences were collected. Group sessions and individual interviews were recorded and were added to our archives. And extracts from the oral histories are available on the Divided Society website under Outreach. And I would really strongly encourage you to have a listen to those, especially when you come to think about the content for your own postcards. So this is just one example of a postcard from our political collection. I have picked it as an illustration of this aspect of the collection, as I know you will be hearing about murals. But I also thought it would be interesting for you to think about this postcard as an example of the commercialisation of the Troubles period, for example, for tourism. This postcard, I imagine, was marketed as a memento of visiting or touring the political murals in Belfast, which brings us to postcards. When preparing for this session, I reflected on postcards I have sent and received. I am 48, and much of my life was pre-internet and pre-email, and the postcard as a medium of communication continues to have resonance for me, like most, in connection to family holidays, which illustrates one very important category of postcard, those which are of places you have visited. For me, that includes Dinard in Brittany, in France, and Santa Margherita on the Ligurian coast of Italy. These are the two places that my family holidays have alternated between for several years. I especially like these postcards as they are replicas of vintage Art Deco, sort of 1920s style postcards, which I think are really good examples of postcards as nostalgia, which is important. Postcard is also important to me in relation to remembrance. I still buy a postcard from every museum or art gallery I visit to remind me of the experience. They can be of objects such as Michelangelo's David. This postcard came from the Accademia in Florence. Or also of a piece of art which I have felt the most connected to in an exhibition, such as this painting of 9/11 by Gerhard Richter, which I saw at the Tate Modern in London. And I think the history of the postcard really is fascinating, and I would encourage you to spend some time researching. There is lots of information freely available, but just by way of introduction, some general background before I turn to the Linen-Hall's postcard collection. To quote from an article that I read as I was doing some research for today, postcards never contain bad news, and this is one reason why everyone likes to receive them. The pleasures they give are simple. They are, but they are themselves very complex objects. Something to think about. There are many ways we can look at postcards as part of postal history, as an ephemeral part of printing history, as a spin-off of the leisure industry, but ultimately they are and remain a cheap and effective means of communication. Postage stamps were introduced in Britain and Ireland on the 6th of May 1840. The postcard originated in Europe in the 1860s, the first being issued in Austria in 1869. As a means to provide a cheaper form of mail in the shape of a postcard, and they rapidly became a popular medium, mainly because they cost less to send than a sealed envelope. Estimates of 200 to 300 million were produced and in circulation worldwide, so that in the period from 1900 to the beginning of the First World War is known as the golden age of postcards. Early cards were completely blank on the message side. The other side had an imprinted stamp, the printed title postcard, and the instruction, the address to be written on this side. It's not until the 1st of September 1894 that private individuals gained permission to send postcards through the mainstream postal service. And while they tend now to be associated with holidays, as I've said, it was as early as, in fact, 1895, when the first German, and please forgive my pronunciation, as I don't speak German, it's Gruß aus, meaning greetings from, card was produced. But before the First World War, postcards were largely the preferred form for routine daily communication and were commonly used for making appointments, brief inquiries about health and well-being, and conveying congratulations and greetings on special occasions. Now, from what I've read, rather than being invented, the picture postcard evolved, with illustrated envelopes being the precursor. Gradually, small pictures were added to the plain postcards. But even for picture cards at first, the rules stipulated that one side of the card should feature the address, whilst the picture plus the message had to be written on the reverse. This is why in many of the early picture cards that we have in the library, a note in minute handwriting appears below or beside the image. It was 1902 before the postcard as we know it, the divided back type of postcard, was in circulation, and the message and address could both be written on one side, leaving the image on the front unblemished. And of course, running parallel to the history of the postcard is the history of photography. The two overlapped with the invention of the number 3 folding pocket Kodak, which was a small portable camera on sale to 1914, which could print the developed image directly onto a specially designed card that had a back layout for posting as a postcard. And the picture postcard soon became very popular, as I've mentioned, when that's being posted. In the early part of the 19th century, a number of education acts were passed, resulting in rising levels of literacy amongst the working classes, and along with this, advancements in printing techniques allowed for high quality reproductions to be cheaply mass produced. And in the era predating the telephone, the postcard really was the easiest and most cost-effective way to keep in touch with both those at home and abroad. At first, all Irish postcards were published by British firms. In fact, most Irish cards were probably produced by the firm of Valentine of Dundee. If you're ever looking in auctions or markets, look out for the firm of Valentine of Dundee on any postcards. But Irish firms such as Lawrence, Healy and Eason, of course, which is so familiar to us all now from the High Street, were soon producing cards locally and countrywide. The most popular picture postcards undoubtedly were and still are topographical, showing scenes from a specific locality. Many postcards show images of beautiful, wild and mostly unpopulated countryside, sometimes punctuated picturesque ruins. The very traditional postcard offers a romantic, often very over-colorized view of an area or landmark. Requisite ingredients include green fields, blue sky or water, purple mountains. Some have a focus of human interest, a cottage, animal, peasants or children, as well as giving an indication of scale. These elements draw the eye and help to tell the story. In view cards, landscapes become scenery and a backdrop or setting for a narrative. Mood photographs can play to quite stereotypical images of Ireland, old shop fronts, water pumps or letterboxes evoking a bygone age. Some aimed at the Irish-American market. These postcards played to preconceptions of Ireland and the notion of Irishness, something again to think about. The imagery is largely dictated by commercial interests, often reflecting and reinforcing stereotypes. And it is interesting when you come to start looking at examples of postcards to think about the way that they represent Ireland. They frequently construct a timeless Ireland, invariably pre-industrial, and as I said, romanticised, with symbols and motifs to look out for, such as yarn spinning, the harp, the shamrock. And of course, there was mass immigration from Ireland to the United States and Canada, and for many, the postcard was the only form of contact with their loved ones at home. These communiques not only carried news from family and friends, but they also provided treasured images of beloved homeland. It also meant for the first time pictures of distant places could be sent to those who had never actually been there, as although picture postcards were used for many different purposes, they were often, as I've alluded to, produced with tourism in mind, with images of countries as desired and sought by tourists. Postcards are, of course, all really important as social histories, charting the changes and developments in society, especially in relation to something like transport. Really is fascinating as you look at examples to plot the changes in transportation from the horse and cart right up to the motor car. They also illustrate the rapidly developing popular culture from music halls to theatres and cinema, and the growth of the leisure industry with the marketing of places as holiday resorts and tourist attractions. The world really has opened up so much in terms of travel, or it had, I should say. But it's really fascinating to look at how Ireland developed as a tourist attraction. Some early cards in the collection celebrate the trappings of British rule in Ireland, while others show the emerging national identity. And the political postcards of Ulster were used by all shades of opinion to disseminate their messages. In terms of collecting, postcards are on a par with stamp and coin collecting as a worldwide hobby. The heyday of collecting was between 1895 and 1914. The picture postcard album took the place of the family picture album. It waned somewhat after the First World War before having a revival in the 1960s. Apparently some of the most collected categories include advertising postcards. Dunville's whiskey was an early example of a very active postcard advertising campaign. Also popular among collectors are Art Nouveau and Art Deco postcards, aviation, cinema, maps, military, novelty cards, which there are quite a few on the Postcards Ireland site, political postcards, and those of railways, shipping, sports, and theatre. So the postcard collection at the Linden Hall is one of the largest and most comprehensive of its kind, with over 7,000 cards. The collection contains a wealth of images which reflect the history of the postcard and capture Ireland in bygone days, giving a sense of what life was like in remote villages and towns over 100 years ago. As you would expect, topographical cards hit the collection. Almost every city, town and village in Ireland is featured, from Mallinhead in County Donegal to Skibbereen in West Cork. Famous landmarks and popular tourist destinations are well represented. For example, there are over 100 images of the Giant's Causeway alone. Social development in urban Ireland is captured in postcards depicting street scenes, which illustrate the growth of cities such as Belfast, Dublin, and Cork. From these photographs, we can trace changes in architecture, fashion, and transport. One such postcard, the demise of the horse-drawn carriage, is immortalised in a black-edged card that reads, "Sacred to the memory of the Belfast horse car, which succumbed to electric traction." Alongside these scenic cards, other visual aspects of everyday life abound. Housing, local industries, sport and leisure are all covered and give a tangible sense of what conditions were like at the time. And as mentioned, a series of political cards relating to British rule in Ireland include significant historical events, such as the signing of the Solemn League and Covenant in 1912 and the Easter Rising of 1916. There are vintage cards of formidable individuals, very posed portraits of society ladies, famous politicians and everyday families included in this archive. A poignant collection of so-called sweetheart cards produced during World War I illustrate how men fighting on the front stayed in touch with their loved ones at home. And again, I would encourage you when you're looking at this category of card to reflect on the portrayal of women. They are invariably mothers, sisters, wives, or sweethearts, rather than fully rounded individuals who were contributing to the war effort, perhaps a form of propaganda in itself. And there is also a range of humorous and speciality cards which are more light-hearted. One such card from Muckross Abbey in Killarney was published by the Irish Paper Agency in 1907 on paper made of turf. and proudly states this card is made from soil of old Ireland. So there are many reasons why the library decided to digitise its unique collection of postcards. By creating digital images, the original postcards are consulted less frequently, which aids their preservation and longevity. The site also allows worldwide access to the material online, which increases accessibility. And as a charity, the library generates much needed income from the sale of the cards, as they can be purchased and they are posted anywhere in the world. So I really hope that has given a useful introduction to the library and its collections. I hope you enjoy exploring the postcards on the site. And I do wish you every success with the project. I think it's going to be really fantastic. The contact details for the library are here. Phone number's not in action just now, but you can email info@linenhall.com. And the team who are working remotely will, of course, endeavour to help with any research queries. And all of the digitised collections, the main route is through the Linden Hall's website, www.lindenhall.com. And there is a section for digitised collections, which provides links to all of our digitised material. Okay, so that's all I have to say just now. Leslie, I'm going to hand back to you.
No problem. Listen, Samantha, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. As I said, I mean, I learned as much, I think, as anybody else, you know what I mean? So I've, you know, really enjoyed it. Hopefully it's inspired all of you as well. Can I maybe get a thumbs up? Was that good? Did we enjoy it? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Do you just want to put your hand up or anything? And we can, Jude can unmute you. Anybody?
Jude, sorry, can you resend me the invitation for the channel?
Yes, I will.
It won't.
Are you having problems getting into it?
Yeah, it won't let me in. Yeah.
Are you able to get into any of the other channels that you're on, Keelan? Are they all still working okay?
Slack for the other. I'm in Slack for the other program, but I don't have postcards coming up on my menu at all.
No problem at all. That's grand. I'll re-invite you to that.
Thank you.
No problem. There's Anne's got a wee question. I'll unmute you now, Anne.
Yeah,
How you doing?
Sorry, I'm similar. I'm already on Slack, but actually I realised I used a different email address to register, and I wondered, has that made any difference? Because I preferred.
Could you send me the email address that you used for the last one?
I will.
And then we can keep it. We can use the same email address, so then you can use the one account for the different ones.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions? If there's any bother like that at all, just feel free to ask. You know.
Jimmy, you okay? Yeah. Okay.
Happy enough, deadly.
Okay, folks. Well, listen, I say again, hopefully you enjoyed that. Our next session will be on Thursday. And it's the dreaded art section, I believe is where I've heard this being called, you know. Listen, really tell you, see, as soon as you tell anybody that you're an artist, they automatically go, oh, where can you draw me? And the answer is no, I can't. It's been many years since I've sat down with a pen and paper and sat at a life drawing class, but I do still practice my creativity. What I'm going to do on Thursday for you is I'm going to give you like a talk about where I've come from and how I've used art, and also a bit of text and the written word in a lot of my practice and with a lot of community projects. As I said before, I've worked a lot with in conflict resolution, addressing interfaces, sort of like in the post-conflict society. It's all these terrible buzzwords that you have to use when you're writing funding applications, and then the sort of sink in. And a lot of the work I've been doing out in the field has sort of sunk into my own practice. So I'm going to give you a chat about that and hopefully inspire you and show you some examples of projects that I have done where I've engaged with the community about their histories and memories, etc., which hopefully will feed into this project as well. I'm also going to give you a few examples, don't be getting too excited, of how you can start your own postcard when you're doing your visual part of it. And this, you can use things from around the house, you know, bits of card, greetings cards, wrapping paper. I have a wee list of things that I'm going to send out to you later on today, and just a wee like inspirational sort of paragraph about basically don't be worried about this part of it, okay? Nobody's judging. There's nothing ever wrong in art. There's some guidelines, as I said, but you know, guidelines and rules can always be broken. So I mean, the main thing is to have a bit of fun about this. You know what I mean? And I mean, at the end of the day, art and writing and thoughts are all very subjective. So, you know, just as I say, don't be worrying about it. I don't know whether I'm convincing myself here more or yourselves, but sure, we'll get somewhere out of it anyway. So he's also going to, I think Niall has posted you out some actual printed postcards from the library and also from the Ulster Museum.
Yeah.
And these are yours.
Sorry, Leslie, I'm just going to show a couple of examples of.
Excellent.
There's a pack coming to you in the post, hopefully today or tomorrow. Tomorrow at the latest, I should think. And in it will be some blank postcards. So a selection of 10 blank postcards. On one side, you get a chance to write the address and do the stamps and all of that. And also a selection of 10 postcards made up of images from, as Leslie says, from the collections at Lennon Hall Library and from National Museums NI. Some iconic images, some images that you would have seen through Samantha's presentation as well. And the idea being that we've also given you some stamps in your packs as well. And then the idea being that you will, on Thursday, take these nice little blank postcards and create your masterpieces through Leslie's help.
Okay, no pressure, see? Yes, Francis, have you got something to say there? Hang on, dear, I'll get you unmuted. Where you go?
Hiya, just a question. So quite a lot of my friends from here have, and family as well, have moved. So when you're talking about sharing friends and family, is it possible to, would you be interested in, say my brother was in uni in the 90s in Belfast, but he's now living in Portugal. Would that be too?
No, I think that would be grand because you have signed up to the project. So, and that's, you know, your wider circle. But do people, you know, people who do sign up, they do have to live in, you know, the north or the border counties. So, but if it's a family member that lives abroad, I can't see there being a problem with that. Hopefully, is that okay now?
Yeah, of course.
Mail if it works.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else? Any questions or queries? This is brilliant. You can all get off half an hour early. It's like getting out of school, flipping, you know, getting a free period on a Friday afternoon. Listen, I'm gonna, I'll email you that we list out in a few ideas, and I will see you all on Thursday. But if you have any questions in between then, just get on Slack and we'll pick it up and hopefully answer your queries. Is that okay? Okay, Jude, anything you want to say?
No, I'm happy enough. Feel free just to get on to Slack, and if you have any wee ideas, just share them with everybody, and anything at all. It's great to communicate during this sort of tricky, hard time. But it's lovely meeting you all.
Yeah, okay.
Brilliant.
All right, see you all Friday, or sorry, Thursday then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can whack a wee recording off there now, Leslie, just to see if then that means you don't